Good morning. Welcome to Retro Toy Princess. I'm Allison Troy, and my guests today are Break Something and Oz of
Hello.
Ostradamus Toys. And we're a little late today, and I apologize for that. Technical difficulties on my side, i.e., somebody did not plug their phone into charge. So, with that said, I apologize and I thank you for your patience. While I drink a little bit more coffee and to become a little bit more cognitive, let's check in with the chat. Good morning, Brennan. Lovely to see you. I hope you have an excellent 2024 as well. Look, it's Brick. Yep, we're figuring out where the heck Allison is and why she overslept. Derek. Yep, things are behind. And it's the universe for you, Derek, so that you're on time. Good morning, Thanos. Lovely to see you. Thank you for hitting that like, which is my time to say, if you haven't already, smack that like. Good morning, Duchess. Lovely to see you. If you're in chat and you are for some reason not subscribed to Duchess, please do. She has a great channel. One day I'll figure out how to run all of that on the screen. Good morning, Nolan. We're late, but we've arrived because Nolan is here. So,
right?
It's not. Oh, what is the old saying? There ain't no party like a West Coast party until Nolan shows up. So something like that. I think that's how it
Ain't
goes.
no party like the
No, so something like
now
that.
I forget how weird this was.
Yeah, right.
Doing my digital with the overlays and everything and how that works with this. Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah, the digital. Yeah, no, it's a little. It is what it is. So,
Oz, I don't know, man. You've got a voice for radio. There's something that it just.
Yeah, right. I've got.
Thank you.
I've got a. Once I get sort of that new little mini show I'm going to do on my channel going, I think you're going to be one of the first people I asked to show up. All right, really quick so that we can make this sort of official. Greg, I made these really fancy, and I did not, because of my tech difficulty, I didn't get to switch out for the super cool ones Brick made. What's nice about it, though, is he put the names of them on his, so that I now know what these characters are named. So
yeah, I needed you to know, Allison, that this guy's name is Pelvicus. Just
yeah. See, I've been calling this guy
Pelvicus
that
thrust.
soldier guy with flies, because that's what's happening. And then
I like Fly Dead Guy, but sure.
Yeah, and this
that was my personal favorite.
Angel Warrior Lady person, and then Laughing Dead Skull person guy. So I'm going to start with the Fly guy, who is Poxus, like a pox upon your home.
Yes.
I'm being bougie and using Prisma color, because why would I use anything else at this point? And not only the cases, but I'm just going to break out the pencil kits. Also, FYI, we're in the part of the day where my cats are going into terror mode. So if you hear crashing and laughing, that's the cats, and that's Matt. So Sunday morning at the Troy household. Yesterday's podcast, aka Derek Hoover. If you guys aren't listening to yesterday's, please do. It's one of my favorite podcasts right now. It's actually the only podcast I regularly remember to listen to. So he did an excellent episode on Gremlins, which I was very sad. Nobody online asked me why I hated Christmas, so I didn't get to officially do my Phoebe Cates this year, but it's fine.
Allison, why do you hate Christmas?
Oh my God, it's just another reason to hate Christmas. You say you hate certain things and people act like you're fine and it's okay, but you say you hate Christmas and everyone acts like you're a leopard or something.
I'd like to be a leopard.
Yeah, right?
Oh, wait.
All the stripes. Speaking of stripes, Let's see. Let me get in. I see. I forgot to. I should have brought the black wig out for this, but I can do it. Phoebe Cates, by the way, epic. She owns a trendy little boutique in New York these days, where if you go online, you could overspend for a set of Caran d'Ache pencils. I didn't buy those from her store because I wasn't gonna pay extra $30. But anyway, so anyway,
That was the type of pencil you said?
yeah, the Caran d'Ache. Good morning, Carol. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
K-roll.
So anyway, the worst thing that ever happened to me was on Christmas.
Oh
Oh
It
no.
was horrible. I was 9 years old. Me and Mom were decorating the tree, waiting for Dad to come home from work. A couple hours went by. Dad wasn't home. So Mom called the office. No answer. Christmas Day, it came, it went. Still nothing. So the police began a search.
Ooh.
4 or 5 days went by. Neither one of us could eat or sleep. Everything was just falling apart.
Oh man.
It was snowing outside. The house was freezing. So I went to try and light a fire. That's when I noticed the smell. The firemen came and broke through the chimney top. And me and Mom, we were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird. And instead they pulled out my father. He was dressed as Santa Claus. He'd been climbing down the chimney and he slipped and he broke his neck. He died instantly. And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus. Anyway, Phoebe Cates, ladies and gentlemen.
So. Oh wait.
And so, yeah, I used to get everyone at Blockbuster. Well, not everyone, but there was always some new kid that would complain like,
I forgot
my
that
God,
reference.
Isn't it horrible that we have to work on Christmas? And I would be like, I hate Christmas. And of course, why do you hate Christmas? The best was the year I got the girl. She's in tears. That I broke that year. I didn't make it all the way. As
Yeah,
soon as the
you know, you
tears-
totally said that story before, and I completely forgot where that was coming. I was like, "Wait, where's this going?"
Yeah, right.
I was totally that customer for you just in that
Yeah.
moment. I
Yeah.
was wonderfully
Anyway,
clueless. Where was that
Yeah.
from?
Gremlins,
Was
That's
it from Gremlins? Oh,
which is
okay.
one of
She
the
goes
best.
into like that.
Yeah. Well, they also set it up though earlier, like, you know, she's working at the bar and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna work," and he's like, "Why would you work on Christmas?" And that's when she talks about like when you say you hate Christmas or whatever. But then she explains it later whenever he rescues her at the bar. That was the year, like 1984. Like between I probably spent way too much time in retrospect watching Private School for Girls with Phoebe Cates in it. But Gremlins, I was just like, I want to be Phoebe Cates. And why wouldn't you want to? Because she was pretty happening. I even have somewhere in storage a copy that I bought in the early days of the internet of her pop album that she released.
Oh my god, I'm just
Alright.
realizing how much of a hole in my pop culture knowledge there is around Phoebe Cates. I had no idea she was a
Yeah.
singer.
Her first movie, Paradise, which she was how she learned to be really careful about your contracts because she's not as naked in that as everyone thinks, but they got a body double and made it look like she was. So yeah, she yeah, her father is like a very famous like industry person, and her mother is some sort of. Should look it up, but her family is she's part Filipino, so I'm
Yeah, I did
actually a
know
little
that.
surprised you're not the wealth of Phoebe Cates' knowledge because she
I'm not.
very early representative of, you know, and of course the media sort of downplayed.
Of course. Well,
Of course they downplayed this sort of they downplayed the whiteness of it, but it was because they were able to sell her as an exotic beauty, so which is gross because that's not why Phoebe Cates was beautiful. But yeah, she had her babies with Kevin Kline and decided to retire from the industry and shows up sometimes with him at premieres and but mostly like just sort of chills in Manhattan and shows up from time to time, allegedly at a boutique she owns. It's a very bougie boutique with very expensive things that I can't afford per se, but there's a snow globe of New York City that she has. It's like $80 for this fancy snow globe. And that's sort of on my list of things to at some point buy for myself. Just because, Gremlins 2, New York, and then
Yeah.
Phoebe Cates, buy something from her store.
Well,
I know we're doing Legions, but allow me to say for the record that I liked Gremlins. I saw it when it came out. I saw Gremlins 2, I think, in the drive-in. But I haven't revisited it much. The first time I revisited it, actually, since maybe the 90s, was not too long ago on Skelly's channel, I think, when he was talking about it. And so I watched it with the kids. Anyway, it was a trip. It's been a while.
I rewatched it. I watch it every year. But I did sort of notice. I haven't rewatched Gremlins 2 in a while. And that one to me was great as a kid, but it goes too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I will say
Gremlins 2 was my favorite.
Yeah, as a kid, it was my favorite because it was just so wacky and over the top. As an adult, I kind of wish that there had been a little bit more reserve because it's a little too. It goes too far.
Zany.
It goes too far into parody. The thing that I enjoyed about as an adult appreciating sort of the craft side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I like about Gremlins is even though it is a parody and it is a riff on sort of 80s American consumerism, it sort of holds up beyond the zaniness. Like you could tone down some of the comedic elements and it's like there's still a solid movie there, like the relationships between the town, like the way the sort of Mrs. Deagle and the bank people are like, crushing this town and the people in it, and the way small towns are being sort of killed. And, like it's just, like there's a lot to say for it. I do like the Asian representation in the beginning is a little dated.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's where I struggled a little bit in the rewatch. I was like, is this whole thing like a veiled, like weird,
it's
anti-immigrant sort of like othering thing? Like the whole thing, even with the Magua. So I'm not trying to ruin it for folks. Just saying it hit me oddly when I rewatched it with the kids, and I was like,
I didn't get that as a kid at all. But as an adult,
I didn't even
know.
Well, I did I did in the beginning in the shop stuff. I was like, even as a kid, I was like, but
whatever. I didn't get that at all because I had no clue that was sort of a trope at the time. 1984. I was like, what, 9, 10 maybe.
I'm adding stuff to this, by the way. Just because
I was a very ignorant youth.
Oh. Well, most of us. I mean, we are. Yeah.
I honestly thought at that age, because of TV and media, every Asian person knew martial arts. Like that was just TV had made me fully believe that.
I wasn't quite there. I was very fortunate that when I would, like my grandparents, one of their neighbors, Jim, his wife, Kyoko, was from Korea. He met her during the Korean War. They fell in love, came back, got married, had kids. Her daughter, I don't know how to make kimchi. She definitely tried. I just, at 8 or 9, when I would go over there to be babysat during the summer, that I didn't grasp. She is the reason I can make a mean bowl of ramen. She was like, here's how you take this 15-cent packet of ramen noodles and make it gold, which saved my ass during college. Everyone else is like, I can't believe I have to eat ramen again. I'm like, fucking A, ramen for dinner tonight. Give me that egg, give me like at the time you could get like sort of like quote unquote stew meat really cheaply at the grocery store, so for like $10, you know, all the ramen you can eat and get a couple onions, she would use jalapenos because where they were in Texas, there was a much heavier Hispanic influence. The Asian market was a little bit farther out. But, you know, so there's a little bit, but, you know, so I had a different, you know, and she would get all these cool, like, you know, like there was this black gum and it tastes like Coca-Cola and then at some point it doesn't taste like anything but awful. But she was like, yeah, but she's like, we don't chew gum like you do in America. It's like you chew it for a little bit and then you spit it out. It's not supposed to be in your mouth all day. Right. You know, and I was 8, like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. So I was fortunate because it exposed me to a lot of. She did it she had to Americanize it a little bit because her husband, surprise, a little bit racist, but so it was slightly Americanized, but that made it easier in the 80s as an 8-year-old to pick up on it. But you know, stuff like Gremlins to me is falls under sort of that subtle racism because your primary Asian characters are not presented negatively, but they are given sort of the grandfather is the wise,
mystified.
Yeah, he's the wise old Chinaman who like knows better than the
pronounced perfectly, by the way, Chinaman. Yes.
Yeah, right. Who like knows things, and the white people don't listen to him, and it goes awry, which seems like a positive to me. It seemed like wow, he like. But of course, it does that mysticism thing where it's like you're not getting a full, well-rounded character. You're getting a stereotype, you know, and that's a trope that often exists in horror movies. But it's like you can't, in my opinion, you can't really do that to. You have to be really careful with a horror movie, and I think. I don't say I give Gremlins a pass. The reason I haven't abandoned Gremlins is because I think overall, like, that stereotypical portrayal for me as an adult works for sort of the indictment of 80s culture because, you know, like at the same time, it's like there's for me a subtle subtext of like white people going in and stealing culture and then it ruining it, you know, like the Gremlins, like the Gremlin has this great life with the old man. He's happy. His grandson wants to be more American. Sells the Mogwai anyway to white people who just want the cool new thing. It goes awry.
No way.
He comes back and, you know, takes Gizmo back at the end, and everyone can live happily ever after because, you know, white people didn't know what to do and they misappropriated and ruined someone else's culture. So it works for me on that level now. Like there's a subtext that helps me excuse some of its faults. It's not like 16 Candles where it's like I will rewatch it, but I cannot forgive the crimes of that movie.
Well, you know, you and I have had this conversation before, and I know we're totally not talking Mythic Legions, but just the notion of like, I am definitely not of the sort of, hey, let's bury it in an archive and never look at it again, because I would rather have these tough conversations, even though I'm sure there are a lot of people who are sort of uncomfortable with it, and that's okay. That's part of the conversation and part of the problem. Frankly, we haven't had those tough conversations. But anyway, I bring it up just because I hadn't revisited it, and I love. It's funny. It's like you're in love more with like the design of the creature or whatever, like the things that I had in my head, and I kind of just forgot about that stuff. And then you go back and revisit it and you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that from the 80s where it's like stuff we love is really difficult. You know, like even I mean, like I am not in a, you know, because the nonsense with my alarm, I am not in a place where I can talk about Revenge of the Nerds. But I'm gonna say the first time I rewatched that as an adult, it fucked me up. Like,
what was the word again? Is it grapes or something?
Yeah, grape. Yeah, grape. That's what you should use on YouTube. Not that I'm monetized yet, but
I really appreciate grapes as often as I hear people talk about it on YouTube.
Yeah, right?
God, I'm so clueless. I had no idea about that until you and Muriel mentioned it.
I keep forgetting. I've got a couple channels that they do commentary, like drama stuff, where they will talk about the stuff, but they use the words and they're like, and these are people who make a lot of money on YouTube, so it's important that they not get. But I think it's equally important. They also have massive views and Patreons and merch. So like for them, if it's that big of a deal. For smaller creators, it's important, I think, to understand how all of that works. Anyway, but like as somebody who has a grape or two in my history, it was hard as an adult to go back and rewatch that and sort of realize the like sort of the culture around that. Like literally, like he puts on a costume just like her boyfriend. They engage. She thinks it's her boyfriend. Surprise, it's not. And then they fall in love.
Yep.
They take pictures of her naked and stick them in pies and sell them. Like there's a lot wrong with that whole, multiple things. So there's no way for me to get around that movie. There's a lot of the homophobia, which is of the time. I've heard people, well, he's such a positive portrayal. It's like, yeah, that's not a positive portrayal. And it's your sole black character. So not only do you only have one black character, you've made him a double stereotype. He's one of the good ones, guys. So I just can't forgive the sins of that movie. I never had a ton of nostalgia for it myself because it was a bunch of boring men doing men things, like Private School for Girls with Phoebe Cates, for instance, also has some questionable elements around consent. I can overlook that a bit because Phoebe Cates, all of those 80s, Porky's has a lot of issues as well, which is another 80s movie Porky's. I spent too much time as a child watching. It's a movie I recently watched, and because that was one of my first DVD purchases, was like a Porky's 2 double feature.
Really?
Yeah, I got it. My first.
Was it the Criterion edition of Porky's?
As close as we will ever get to that. Yeah, like my first 5 DVDs were I got Friday the 13th, the original, because that's how I decide to. Anytime I get on new media, it's a Friday the 13th movie that begins it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's sort of my OG of everything.
It's a very good tradition, I believe.
So it was like Friday the 13th, Scream 3, which had just come out on DVD, Miss Congeniality, which I was an extra on that movie, so I was like, you gotta have it from a resume. An old Mario Bava giallo slasher film called Twitch of the Death Nerve, which I'd never seen, but it was like because of the way DVD opened up.
Sorry, I was muted, Allison, and you just kind of glossed over the fact that you're an extra in Miss Congeniality, which I haven't seen, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm an extra in that. I got to meet
Story time.
Yeah,
I want to hear about this.
Well, it was just Austin, like Sandra Bullock. It started with. Wait, let me do this properly. Let's do it like it's a movie. It started with Julia Roberts. She met Lyle Lovett and moved to Austin. I would later run into her at the grocery store in the yogurt department, but that's a story for a different day. But Julia Roberts moved to Austin. It was Robert Rodriguez was up and coming. Matthew McConaughey had just hit. Sandra Bullock moved to Austin. So suddenly, when I say moved, it's like she had a second home there. Because this is when it was cheap still to live in Austin. And so suddenly people realized that you could make movies in Austin very cheaply. So Robert Rodriguez filmed The Faculty there. I did a little extra work on that. I did not do any extra work on Varsity Blues because that was a little bit further out, so it was harder to work that in between my day job. I did a beer commercial where I was up in the stands, and it was about me. Like there were like 20, 30 of us, and then they had these cardboard cutouts. So like the whole day was us just moving around the stadium. It was pretty good.
It's like a football scene or something, or
yeah, it was like a football. It was for the commercial, like it was a football stadium.
Okay.
In the commercial, I don't remember what it was. Just like a high school or a college stadium.
Sure. I mean, the high school stadiums in Austin, in Texas in general, are like a college.
Yeah, the most significant movie I worked on was Miss Congeniality. I did in the beginning of the movie. It opens in that Russian bar. You'll see the reflection of cars driving by throughout that scene. I'm one of the cab drivers. He's in a horrible car. Almost ran over the second assistant director. I almost got fired my first night because they put me in a car that didn't work. The heater was broken, and it's August in Austin, and they were raining ice cold fake rain on us. So I couldn't see, and it was just like I could see the lights of the car in front of me. So it was literally just hit the pedal to the metal and listen for the cut. And anyway, I almost ran over the second assistant director because he tried to jump in front of the car.
Nice.
Which nobody.
That sounds like a him problem. I'm just saying.
Yeah, nobody enjoyed him as a person, so I don't know that anyone would have minded. And I recently looked him up on Internet Movie Database, and he hasn't done anything in Hollywood in like 15 years. So we love that for him. But so that part was not the filming of that part was not enjoyable for me. Just because it was miserable. The costume, they put me in a full costume, even though I was not on screen at all for it, which is where you learn, sort of where I started realizing where sort of Hollywood movies really lose a lot of their money is because they spent all this money to have me in a full costume nobody ever saw. Where they should have put that money into getting a slightly better junker car that was safer. But I did that was the night I raided craft services and met Benjamin Bratt, but I didn't know who he was.
Oh, Benjamin Bratt. He's the
and he came out and was, complimenting, like I led the raid on craft services because I was like, it was hot in that car. I sweated. I needed that banana for the potassium, and so that the apple juice or whatever it was. Yeah. I remember the banana, not the juice. But he came up and he was like, "You guys are doing a great job out here." And of course, the girl with me is freaking out because one, we've been busted, and two, she knew who he was.
And two, he's fine as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was dating. Was either Sandra Bullock? No, he wasn't dating Sandra Bullock. He was dating, I think, Julia Roberts at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he was more famous. That I knew his name because he was dating, I think, Julia Roberts. Pretty sure it was Julia Roberts. Anyway, so she's sort of freaking out, and I just think she's freaking out because we've gotten busted. But to me, he just looks like another extra because I didn't know who he was. So he's like, "Hey, how's it going? You guys are doing great out here." And I'm like, "Oh, it's going well. It's good. How you're doing great in there?" I'm like, "Do you want something? Like, we're not really supposed to be eating this, but it's late and it's been forever since they fed us, and I need this juice and this banana before I die. Do you want it?" He's like, "Oh, no, I'm good." He's like, "Don't worry about it. Y'all are fine." And I'm just thinking the whole time, like, who is this dude thinking that he can, like, tell us it's okay to raid craft services? And
was he in the film? Sorry, I don't know the movie.
Yes. We chat. It's like FBI, and then Julia Roberts has to go undercover at the Miss United States pageant.
Okay.
It was a fun movie. If you're going to be an extra on a movie and almost kill the second assistant director, at least it's a movie I could enjoy.
He's the agent, right? Now it's coming together. I kind of remember seeing the commercial.
Yeah, he's the agent that they have difficult chemistry, and then they
fun movie.
Is it
adversarial? So anyway, so yeah, and
he's aged really well too. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's in Doctor Strange, right? He was like one of the.
Yeah, he's done pretty well for himself. So anyway, he walks off, and the girl's like, "Oh my god, that was Benjamin Bratt. Why were you so cool?" And I was just like, instead of saying I didn't recognize him or whatever, I was just like, I'm like, they're celebrities. They're just like us. I did know who Ernie Hudson was, and he was very nice. He came over.
Oh, he's in that too.
Yep, he was
Ghostbusters.
Like
yeah.
He came over and talked to us several times. Without having to, he was very nice. Like, of all the celebrities I have met, I will say Ernie Hudson is probably the nicest and the most genuine that I felt like was the most genuine. Julia Roberts not Julia, Sandra Bullock, I've heard people, she's so stuck up. She didn't talk to anyone on that set. She didn't, but by her body language, I think she's horrifically shy. Because when she walked by us when we were standing in line for dinner, her posture was not, oh my god, I'm a huge celebrity. It was, okay, thanks. All right, what is happening here? Sorry, momentary tech issue.
Oh yeah, where's your art? There it is.
Here we go. I forgot.
Where's Oz's art? I
forgot to go into airplane mode, so somebody just tried to call. Fuck those people. All right, let me check chat really quick because I've just been chattering away and forgot folk. Oh my goodness, and I missed. Good morning, Alex. Lovely to see you. Yeah, Gremlins 2. And that's sort of, I digress, but I think I rewatched Gremlins 2. I feel like the the parody of Donald Trump in it is way ahead of its time. But for some reason, I felt like the Asian stereotype in the second one felt worse. Like, even as a kid, that one felt weird. So, oh my goodness, yeah, Willie Ames. See, I did have a crush on him from not as good as Grant Goodeve, but
Willie Ames. What movie was he in that you all were
he was
talking
in
about?
Paradise with Phoebe Cates. There are several interviews where he complains to the media, she won't even do press with me for this movie. She's embarrassed because of this thing, as if it were unreasonable. Ooh, I'm excited for that, Thanos. So many options. I need a Phoebe Cates action figure. Exactly.
Willie Ames is buddy on Charles in Charge, yeah?
Yep, Charles in Charge. And wasn't he in Zapped too?
In Zapped.
Which also has a lot of, I mean, besides the Scott Baio problem.
I was gonna say, were he and Scott Baio like tight or something? They were like
something like that.
All over the place together. Huh.
Good morning, Kenzo. Just Picasso-ing these coloring pages. Thank you. Yeah, I was pretty sure at the time. I knew I knew in the moment that he was dating her. I just didn't know who the hell he was. I didn't watch Homicide: Life on the Street or whatever show it was he was on. So
he was it NYPD Blue or was
something it like that. He was not on Law and Order SVU, which is the only sort of procedural. I'm about 3 seasons behind because I have to take a break from that show. But for me, like,
that's a tough one to make it through.
Law and Order SVU, while it's complicated, like there are awful, horrible things that happen. I enjoy the fantasy element of Law and Order SVU, which it presents a world where the cops care about sexual assault and do something about it and like arrest people, or if they don't arrest them, like the people actually get their comeuppance in the end. Like, to me, I love the fantasy of that TV show.
I appreciate the knowledge drop. That was great.
Like, it's fantasy. Also, it's taught me how to pick out the predator because I can always tell within the first 15 minutes who the responsible party is. So I feel like it's made me smarter and wiser in the world. So
I've heard from people that there's like a formula, right? Like it's the third person you meet or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the third or the fourth. There's a guy on TikTok. who does these great. But I'll find them and send one of them. He's like an actor, and he does all of the secondary character. He makes fun of like the way they set those up. Like there's always like a bartender or like coat check girl, something very New York, and the person always has way too much plot information. And at one point though, he got so many views. At one point, NBC reached out to him and he did some sponsored ads for Law and Order SVU because it was that epic. So I will find it and send them because they're a nice, fun little rabbit hole of sort of the stereotypical plot points of that formula. Yeah, it's usually like, it's not even necessarily, sometimes it's the first person you meet, but there's just always a way that they portray them that like.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some kind of code. Someone told me
there's like a special celebrity guest, like because like Law and Order SVU is the modern day Love Boat, where all these older actors who need to get so many hours of work to keep their SAG insurance benefits will go on Law and Order SVU. So that's the main reason people would do shows like The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. All the stars of yesteryear, one, that was the only work they could get, but two, you have to work. And I know this because at one point one of my clients had a patient who had SAG insurance, and calling and sort of dealing with it, I talked to a very lovely actress who I can't name. Well, she asked me not to when I realized it was her. But part of how she pays for her SAG insurance whenever work is tight, she goes and works the phone banks at the SAG insurance company. So, but yeah, you have to have so many hours of work to qualify for insurance. So people will do stuff like, so anytime you see an actor of yesteryear you love, and they're doing a questionable TV show or whatever, it's probably so they can keep their insurance and their benefits. So, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, Miss Congeniality, I was in that scene. There's a scene of them out there, all the girls at the club when they sneak out. I'm in the background. You may see the silver sparkly shirt go by. That's me. And there's at one point in the club, there's like, it looks like a naked person has thrown themselves against the wall in neon paint. Like that glow in the dark paint. That was my housemate. She was the naked lady who threw herself against that. It was me, her, and her boyfriend was. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know who's watching this, so I'm not going to tell that story today. Hey, you never. I mean, like some of these people I'm still friends with, and some of them have messaged me and said, "I watched your stream; it was great." And I'm just like, all right, as long as Brenda from high school doesn't, we're fine. I did have somebody reach out to me and like, I'm not Carl, am I? And I'm just thinking, if you have to ask.
That's great.
But he
great.
That's so great.
But he did. He's like, I'm not Carl, am I?
Am I Carl? Was I that bad?
But again, like if you have a moment where you tilt your head to the side and have to wonder if you're one of the infamous Carls, like maybe you need to reconsider some stuff. I'm just saying.
Right.
But anyway,
I wish I had a finer.
And then there's that big scene. And they filmed this in San Antonio. But there's a big scene where it's famous even today because it's like they're asking the various girls like questions as you do in a beauty pageant, and they ask the one girl like, what's your idea? What's your idea of the perfect date? And she's like, oh, that's a hard one. But I would have to say April 26th because it's not too hot and it's not too cold. All you need is a white sweater. I was in the audience for that, and that killed. Like there were a couple times did obviously many takes. We got scolded many times because we could not stop laughing when she would say that. So like the fact that endures on the internet does not surprise me because we got in trouble. But I got to see Shatner between takes, and yeah, everything you've heard about Shatner behind the scenes, accurate. Like he wasn't even nice to like the people like his people, like that are there to make sure he's having a good day. Like his little assistants or whatever they were, like his on-set
Sorry,
handlers,
I kind of missed it. Were you talking about William Shatner? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, Shatner.
Oh, God. So. You think Shatner?
Not a good person. Good morning, Payne. Well, it's afternoon at this point. Hello, Payne.
April 26th, Florence and Normandy.
Was busy editing my His Tank retrospective. Well, that's fine because you only missed like an hour because I was late. So thank you, modern technology. Let me make sure I didn't miss anyone in chat. Oh, Zach. Hello, Zach. Hey. Lovely to see you. Are you streaming on Tuesday, Zach? Because I need to watch you do art again. I'm quite enjoying that. If anyone here, well, I'm terrible because I don't know the link off the top of my head, but Zach is amazing and he's been doing live streams of him drawing online. Awesome. And since I want to try to actually get into digital art next year, I'm going to start drawing again, which I'm going to share. Well, I've done a couple drawings. If anyone saw my 2 special Princess Leia videos, the longer ones, one of those is actual art I did. Here's the other art I did.
I like Kenzo's comment.
Me being too noisy?
I drew that. So
I think it's more that you're being quiet.
For my recognition. Carrie Fisher celebration this year, but at some point I'm going to do this one. So I drew this by hand and then scanned it and then used whiteout to fix stuff and then redrew it. So like analog version of digital. But anyway, Zach is awesome and you should go check his channel out.
Right on.
And I'm going to have to spend time this week figuring out how to do links in chat and all of the good stuff. So that I can get people connected to people.
Yes, that's what it's about.
Make those connections.
Well, right. I'm going to also getting to that place where I finally have enough subscribers that I need to start thinking about stuff like that. I am very happy to say I made all of my 2023 channel goals as of last week. So
awesome.
Yeah, so my watch time is where I want it to be. My subscribers are a little bit higher than I planned to, like where I wanted to be at the end of the year. So I'm pretty happy. Like,
I'm glad to hear that. That is amazing.
Yeah, I feel like and it helps that I did a toy video last week finally. So I feel like I'm really close also to getting that place where I figured out what I want my formula to be for the channel. So I think that's equally important when you're doing what you're doing on the YouTubes.
Mm-hmm.
That moment where
I hear that helps.
Yeah, it helps. Well, I think I personally started with sort of all these big ideas, but until you actually start doing it, I don't think you can actually.
Yep.
No. So,
man, I've been editing this, everyone's doing their best of figures. Yeah. Up all night, haven't finished. It's like, man, I overthink. Classic Brick something. Overthinking, overdoing, and just.
I think it's part of my problem with that list too. Like, I'm like, because I still haven't submitted mine yet, and I'm trying to think like, oh, what are my best ofs? What are my favorites and everything? Mm-hmm. And it's just like. It's so hard to decide because we had a lot of really, really cool shit come out this year.
Yeah, it's been a really good year for everything. Yeah, I may or may not also be working up. I'm also going to throw together my favorite shorts of the year. So I need to I'll be editing that a little bit.
Oh, that's
later.
Cool.
Yeah, because, what's interesting is I had a few people.
I'm assuming you're talking about your on your channel, right?
My stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
But what's interesting is I had a lot of people tell me you have to sort of just do one thing. You can't do the coloring thing and you can't do toys. You can't do both. Yeah. And I'm finding the exact opposite. What I have been finding, I would probably have a bigger base if I stuck to one. What I'm finding is a lot of the subscribers I'm getting are into both. The way I'm approaching the toys, I guess. but they also are enjoying the art, the coloring stuff. So it's like, that's sort of part of what has clarified for me this year, toward the end of this year, as we move to 2024, is realizing what the formula is for what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it sort of is sort of the side of toys that doesn't, like I've been scanning all of my old Kenner booklets and turning those into videos and putting those up. I've got to finish scanning it, but I have the blueprints from the old Droid Factory, the Kenner Droid Factory from 1979, like with the instructions on how to. So I'm gonna scan those and make that a video.
I'm jealous that you have that. By the way, that was one that we did not have, and I always, even though it was kind of the same as the wasn't essentially the same platform as the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, they reused it for Jabba's
slightly
dungeon.
But the droid one had all the cool little parts, right? That you put together.
Right.
So, cool.
So this is the instruction booklet that shows you how to put all those together. So
dope.
And that's 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 the side of toys that interests me as an adult collector. Like I like Brick is going to be helping me with. I have scans of the mini comic that came with the Imperial troop transport. I'm working on right now coloring those pages. Brick is going to narrate those, so we're going to get some representation in early Star Wars material.
Nice.
And Matt and I, Matt's actually been helping me because Matt used to do radio. But he's all of those 3 kids stuff, Masters of the Universe books, Castle Grayskull, The Revenge of Skeletor, He-Man, and Battle Cat. I've been coloring those because they had just had black and white pictures in them. And then Matt has been rereading them, doing like the 80s, doing that 80s voice. And I'm going to, for the Castle, I'm working on Castle Grayskull right now. So I'm going to have a very brief.
What's the 80s? Is it like a hey guy, like that?
Yeah, kind of? It's like the Castle Grayskull. So, and I was like, and that's what I want. I didn't have him listen to the files. I just sort of described what I wanted. Because I didn't want him to mimic the guy per se. But even without me having him listening to it, he gets this sort of same vibe of it. So originally I was just going to stick him up with the original sound files, which there are people who are doing it, so there's already. So I don't think that, it's not that it doesn't violate copyright, it's just nobody cares about that copyright. But I don't want it to be something in 2 or 3 years where somebody does care about the copyright and they create issues. So I was like, it's just cool. And it's part of what part of what I'm wanting to do with a lot of this stuff, older things, is sort of to pay reverence to them. So because you have the voice you have, Oz, expect that I will be reaching out at some point to have you narrate some old 80s. Like I'm right now working on a
Can I? Sorry, I hate to interrupt you.
Effect. Oh yeah, no, you're fine.
I'm just wondering, where's art? Oz, where's your stuff? Is it? Are we not?
I've got it as a share screen. I've got it as a
have I not added it?
No,
I have not. I apologize. I'm the worst.
All good.
It's okay.
I didn't know if you were still trying to mess with the files or not. I was like,
no.
I hope you didn't get stuck on that.
No. I would have though. I really would.
There we go. Got it.
Oh wait, no, that's not the one. Oh no.
So
what does it do? Okay. No, we don't. Oh, that's okay. Because last time we did full screen.
Oh, and sorry, I shifted it to the left. Is that what's happening? Because for some reason my printer was being stupid.
It's all good.
No, we're fine.
It's fine. It's working well for me, actually.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, there we are.
And what app are you using again? What's
Autodesk Sketchbook.
Gotcha.
So
used to be subscription based, and it's completely free now.
Good time to check in. Most welcome, Zach. You're perfect. No worries. It was lovely for you to hang out while you could. We appreciate you, Derek. Go find yesterday's. They're the best podcast. I'm listening to right now. Exactly, Alex. Yeah, and that's what I do. I've do feel like that, Alex. I do feel like I'm finding my audience. So anyway, it's just fun because you hear a lot of sort of chat, as it were, about what to do and what not to do, and there we go.
Yeah. Anyway, I've heard that too, Allison, and it's so not me because I have a form of I don't want to misuse the term ADHD, but I get bored easily or creatively bored easily, or like, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to talk about this, and my brain does kind of go a mile a minute, and so like the fact that we're coloring and then talking about Phoebe Cates and then Gremlins and then sometimes Star Wars is just it's kind of rad for my brain. So
all right, there we go. I put everyone's drawing up. Why is it not letting me?
I don't have the right colors for these wings, but these wings are freaking awesome on the toy.
Oh my god, yes.
Which we should probably talk about a little bit, but God, they're like a nasty, dirty, like gold.
Everything's so like a bronzish, dark brown, and there's translucency to them.
Yep.
I mean, this is one of my more excited for sculpts of next year when this guy hits.
Yep.
I mean, it's Legions, so we know I'm all about it, period.
Yeah, I love that you've leaned really hard into Legions.
Right? Yeah, because we kind of like, I mean, you had some stuff before, of course, before I did, because I came in just a little over a year ago getting into the modern Four Horsemen. And I gotta say, like, they've just stolen the show for me when it comes to toys right now.
It's great. They do amazing work. But yeah, these wings, I don't have the right, like, dirty, dingy, like, it, at least I'm looking at Trevor's photos. It's like flypaper almost, like nasty brownish gold, and I'm kind of blending stuff to kind of make it, but it's really bright right now. It's not really working out.
Let's see. Do you have a cream pencil? Technically, I would recommend starting with cream, then like with either burnt ochre or a light brown, light umber. I forget which sets you have.
I
think there's a cream
flower set. I have fishy set. Under the sea. Oh, they have names. There you go. I have the botanical garden set.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the under the sea. Sorry about that. And I have
the sea.
Again,
yeah. Well, I don't know how far you are, but from those, I would say cream. There should be a lemon yellow, and probably I believe it's umber in the sort of main set, like light umber or dark umber. So those three would get pretty close to that, because the cream just sort of is a good base, but it's off white, and then it gives you something to sort of build the other things onto.
I wonder if I don't think I mix these up in the wrong things, but you're saying the quote unquote main one with the parrot?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see. But the browns is definitely, like you said, the umber is what I want to mix in. But let's see, sienna, dark brown. I don't got a whole lot of browns.
Yeah, they don't do a lot of browns.
Racist. Oh.
I've just got a whole color wheel. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. You and your millions
my fancy colors. Tech. My fancy free tech.
So in this one, Allison, we were talking about sectors and like wanting to maybe pencil in stuff. So I went ahead and did that a little bit with these guys. Like one, I did the sort of like He-Man-esque frame and stuff, but also I kind of was penciling in and sharpening in these clouds and mountains.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately, again, overthinking, overdoing, released this whole thing of like, oh man, as I color with these Prismacolors, and they're great, but they're waxy and they're like, you know, cover the print, right? So then all my black outlines sort of disappear, and all the details on this.
Yeah, that is sort of a thing to. I've learned to use that to my advantage.
Mm.
But it takes a little practice with them. I think that's like the and the nice thing for me about the waxiness is you can really sort of lay until you reach the point where you've got too many layers,
Mm-hmm.
and it just you can't add any more after. It's part of the reason I use this super fancy paper because it has extra tooth. I can get way more layers.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a test page in the Legion's coloring book. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are going to be fine with it. I realized part of the reason I went ahead and scanned and printed on my side was I realized I was quickly with the tooth of the paper. I was going to run into trouble, but that's just because
it's smooth, right? Too smooth.
It's nice and smooth. It's really nice. Like I got a couple layers before it started. Before it was like, girl, you're done. You're done.
You know,
no more. I can't take any more.
Right.
You know, but not everyone, you know, like I obviously everyone's style is different. I have to color fairly hard.
Well, I didn't intend to do this, but so first off, this paper that I got, I was like, man, I don't got any more paper, and I don't want to go buy any. I have like old sketchbooks, right? So this is an old sketchbook.
Oh, nice.
And
so it's probably pretty toothy then.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, look, the Mars Volta. And so I just started cutting pages out here that I hadn't used and like printed on them. And then I started using this as my layer, and it's got like that, you know, the actual outside of the sketchbook cover.
Yeah.
Has a grit or a whatever, a texture. Mm-hmm. And I've been coloring on it. So you can kind of see that it kind of created that fun texture, and it actually is helping me with the layering. So.
Yeah, I've got this clipboard that's under mine. Adds a little extra to it, and it took me about a week or two after I got this to sort of realize I needed to adjust for that. And it was throwing me off because I'm like, why is nothing working the way I want it to work? And then I'm like, oh yeah, because I've got this different texture. Because before I was just using my light board, which is very smooth, and but I wasn't, you know, like I was getting a lot. This is very hard, and it's for tracing basically. So it was a different texture, but I wasn't as happy with the textures I was getting. Happier with these, but it just takes a while to adjust to it.
Yeah.
It's been one of the interesting parts of sort of the coloring journey for me is realizing that there really is sort of technique, you know, like in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of respect for the concept of adult coloring. I thought I was very snotty and very gatekeepery with art. And then I started doing it. And I'm like, wow, there's actually some really good artists out there making really good adult, you know, books for adults. And, you know, like there are definitely techniques. there are a lot of creators on YouTube who are making content where it's like you know, like several of my go-to tricks of the trade at this point are from various people who I've watched on YouTube who like showed me something. I mean, I've usually adapted because that's sort of the same thing with a lot of things in art. You can show somebody how to draw a certain thing, but it's going to depend on how you hold the pencil, your style, just how your brain and your hand interact. Like nobody's hand and brain sends the same little electrical current to make it move. So what works for one person may not work for another, but it's just art. That was one of the best lessons my art teacher taught me in elementary school was that. She was like, watch how I do this. She's like, it's probably not going to work the exact same for you because of all these variables. She's like, but this is a good place to start.
It's a good teacher.
And that's, you know, that's been one of the fun things about not worrying so much about the fact I haven't really wanted to draw or felt good about drawing. But plunging into the coloring thing is I've really gotten to sort of draw back on all the lessons Miss Vicky taught me, and just she was a really good influence in my life and really positive, and sort of one of those educators that like a lot of people have stories about the person who made the difference. She was definitely one of those. First person who really actually like. Often when you're an artistic child, there's this sort of othering that happens to you where like, and then there's a lot of like, oh, we need posters for this fundraiser. Can you draw these? For, like
you totally triggered me right with that.
And for a long time, that was like when I had high school, I didn't want people to know I could draw, and as soon as like like people in the office found out, all of a sudden like. All of a sudden, I'm not in PE anymore. I'm sitting in like one of the administrative rooms with stacks of posters, making, with rulers, like not even art. Like it's literally just stencils and rulers making these stupid posters for fundraisers. And it's like, this is not even art. You could have anyone doing this because all you need to do. And then they would get mad because I would get bored and start drawing little things on the posters, and like we want them to all be the same, and it's like, then why did you ask me? Like,
right.
I'm on this.
Well, that was great though. Actually, if you think about it, as an artist, that's like that's your first encounter with ignorant clients. And
yeah, right.
Like, why did you hire me then?
And sort of at one point during that, like the person in charge of that sort of was like, why do you keep doing this? Like, this isn't what I wanted. And I'm like, one, you didn't communicate that, and two, like, get someone else to do this free labor for you. Like, I even said I would rather be in PE, and if you know anything about me, like at that age, even now, like PE, God, that was the worst. But it was just like I would have rather at one point been in PE than just have to sit there and do posts. And like it was a good cause. I think that time it was like a fundraiser for somebody at school who had like cancer or something. So like it definitely was not. It wasn't just like a typical bake sale, so that like the 10th grade could go to like the Tabasco plant factory or whatever. Go to.
Ooh.
I mean, that was a field trip I took at one point to the Tabasco.
I think that would have been a fun trip
on Avery Island.
But I like.
I think most kids in Louisiana at some point in the 80s went to see Tabasco being made, and it's right by like this really like Arcadian village place where it's like they have like sort of these old little shacks like the Cajuns used to live in back in the olden times. So, and we went to a plantation, and I got yelled at because I asked, well, what about the enslaved people? Of course, I wouldn't have used enslaved at the time, but I sort of just came out and asked, because they're like, the rumors are that it's haunted. And I'm like, well, I can see why, because like they treated those people like garbage. And I got
because of the grapes. Sorry,
so much trouble for like bringing up
Wow.
how mean they were to like enslaved people. Like I was told, like, don't ask questions like that. We're here to have fun. And I'm like, yeah, well, okay. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine.
I thought I was supposed to be learning.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be learning that, but it's the South, so I'm not even sure that my teacher at the time would have thought that that was a bad thing. So
cover up, don't educate.
I've got at least one teacher that I get into on, well, used to, because I don't really go on Facebook anymore, but 100% a racist and would post racist stuff and then get mad when she would get called out on it. And I would always, of course, default to, well, this is probably why your husband left you for another woman back in 1989. Because I am petty. So,
Allison, always hitting them where it hurts.
Well, like, my recommendation to anyone who wants to argue with racists is like, you're not going to get ahead you're not ever going to actually get through to them. But what you can do is wound them deeply with other things you may know about them so that they don't have time to be racist because they're too busy drinking their troubles away or being miserable and like whatever. So definitely go low to like ruin a racist day. Because you know what? They have definitely ruined many people's days for no damn good reason. At least use their past and their weaknesses against them. Anyway, anti-racism with Allison.
All right. Could we talk a little bit about this thing? I just realized.
Let's do that. Let's talk about the Mythic Legion stuff.
Well,
wait, we're doing a thing?
Cabal Creations.
Right.
Done by Dusty Standiford. Like this, am I right that this started as Sean and the whole Cabal Creations? Was that something that they were working on, or was that a different thing? Was that a different hashtag?
I do believe Sean was involved. I just can't remember to the extent.
Sure. Well, I apologize if we're doing this wrong, but at one point it became this thing where people were like, "We love these toys, Mythic Legions, by the way, 4 Horsemen." And there's a you were talking about Facebook for whatever reason. Well, I know why, but Facebook is the place for this group of that's like the central hub, if you will, for like Legions fans, called the Mythic Legions Cabal. And so, oh, here it is. There's an ad on the back. Nice. But at some point, this hashtag Cabal Creations, and I believe Sean was involved, and if not, sorry, Sean Skvarna. And somebody else, and I'm totally blanking. Sorry, but they started this hashtag thing where people were like, "Hey, like draw the stuff, do drawings by hand or whatever." There's like folks in there that are tattoo artists, like, and people who are just like love to doodle. So you started seeing all sorts of like cool versions of these characters, and then at some point, Dusty Standiford at the bottom, the creator and publisher of this book, started doing some art and put it together as a coloring book that you can grab. I think, is it off Etsy?
Yes, he still has. Well, I'm not sure if he has any more available at this point. I know before Christmas he did still have some issues.
Okay. Because I think I love this book, and but
it's a really good book.
I think I want to probably do it as a giveaway, actually, because I'm like,
right.
One, I'm all about, like Allison, printing them out, and I hope that's okay, Dusty. I mean, I paid for one, but
right.
But I don't know. I love working on the different paper, like you, Allison, and as you can see, like part of it is I don't want to ruin. Not that you're ruining it,
right?
But I don't want to mess with this book. Like,
well,
I look at Allison like digging up all these vintage. Sorry, Alice, but I just see Allison digging up all these like vintage, pristine books, and I'm like, I want someone to be able to do that someday with this. Sorry, Alice, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, I had reached out to Dusty back during Legion's weekend, when everybody was still at Legion's Con and everything, because our good friend Jesse at Just Shelve It let me know who to contact. Because as soon as I found out about this coloring book, I was like, oh man, okay, I know who's getting that. If we're going to get Allison involved in the Mythic Legions, this is the gateway here.
Pretty much.
And so Jesse told me, he was like, well, contact Dusty Standiford. And I was like, okay, let me hit him up. And I let him know. And he thought this was an amazing thing that we were going to be going live, coloring. And, we're kind of sharing. I mean, he didn't care because we had to buy the book. So,
yeah, right?
He was all good. And like when I told him about it, he was just like, oh, yeah, we're going to make that happen. So
very cool.
No, it's cool. I mean, that's sort of the nice thing. I tend to buy, like the old vintage books obviously have to start somewhere. There are a couple of different people who are archivists where I buy some of my scans from people, who are actually much better at sort of the scan and cleanup than I am. That's sort of a work in progress. That's me learning how to use imaging software, which I've gotten way better at. A lot of the
there's a bit of a curve to it.
Yeah, definitely. And like, and it comes down to like you have to if your scan isn't quite straight, you then have to figure out how to get it sort of adjusted so it's straightened.
Mhm.
There's a lot to it. Some of my scans aren't great, but I'm not selling any of my personal, like I'll provide them some of the ones I've scanned if somebody's coming on and we're going to color some of those things. But even that,
to be clear, these are all old vintage books.
Yeah, these are all the old vintage coloring.
In this case, we each, have our copies of Dusty's in
these
production
were purchased,
coloring book.
and that was sort of what was gonna get to. A lot of current coloring book artists that you can buy stuff from will often you can buy either physical media or you can buy a PDF download.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's an option to buy a physical copy and a PDF, I tend to buy both because one, I'll have that pristine copy, but also because I'm going to want, and this is sort of the problem with, like Amazon, if you want to publish something, you can go and set it up to publish, but you can't actually pick the paper. Mm-hmm. So the paper that artists who publish through Amazon have is not great quality.
Yep.
It's even not like the paper in this Mythic Legions book is better than the Amazon paper. So I don't know where Dusty got it printed, and it doesn't have I can tell if something's printed on Amazon by the indication. This looks like something he printed, or like he went to a local company and printed, so he would have got to pick the paper, which often is going to reflect. And just for anyone watching wondering about vintage coloring books or new coloring books, the quality of the paper is going to impact the cost of it, which is why you'll see like the self-published coloring books on Amazon often are $15 or less because it's that cheap Amazon paper. I definitely encourage buying those because if the artist is selling it, they get a better, they're getting it as decent as you can get from Amazon, but they're getting like a better portion of what you're paying. Whereas if you buy it from them on Etsy as PDF, that's 100% their money. So but I still like to do both because, we live in a world where they're trying to replace all artists with AI, and every little bit I can do to help an artist whose work I enjoy is good. So long story short, if you're watching this and interested in this coloring book, definitely look into buying it directly. And even if he doesn't have PDF right now, he does at some point, buy both. It's going to be like an extra $15-$20 or whatever to get both of them, but that is how artists survive. So if you want cool art and fun things, you've got to pay a little bit more for them sometimes. Support your artists.
Totally.
And with the old coloring books, that's one of the reasons, especially those Empire Strikes Back. I don't know who did the artist. It was just whoever was in house at Kenner. I have reached out to, because I've met a person or two behind the scenes, and I've reached out to a few people to see if there are records of that, because I would like to, that's sort of one of my long-term goals with this channel is to sort of find, based on when it happened and sort of the current state of the age of it, I would assume a lot of the original artists are no longer with us. But it was still nice to be able to say these are the people that worked on this book. So I'm trying to do that because, again, for me, a lot of this paper stuff is really important. Like, that's what's neat to me about Mythic Legions and sort of the community behind it. Is sort of the reverence for the artistry of it. You don't necessarily see that as much. You'll hear people talk about sculpt, like, oh wow, this toy looks really cool. This is a terrible face sculpt. We don't really know who at McFarlane Toys is sculpting the faces.
A lot of that has to do with just the way that the studios run. Real quick, I just realized, let's look at actual figures. So this is Alithia, who's amazing.
She's cool.
And this is her
intense
figure.
neck. Action.
I need to get me that figure brick. Ooh.
Yes, exactly, Zach.
Don't judge me. I'm not a mint in box collector. I just haven't gotten to opening her. I
know.
Arethyr here. Didn't I just show him
You're
yesterday?
playing with Arethyr last night?
Yeah, I have no idea where he went. The damn demon ran away. So,
yeah, war totally. Is on the loose. Watch out, folks.
But just on the artist tip, man, a lot of that has to do with the studio, right? Four Horsemen Studios. Yes. It's funny you mentioned McFarlane because that's kind of where they got their start. But they themselves are artists, and they seem to like hold that culture up, right? They like, we know who their painters are in house. We know who their sculptors are in house. We know, Eric is doing a lot of the designs. Same with their marketing
credit
person.
On the box, like.
Yeah, there are some credits, not quite NECA status, but they're there. Right. Yeah, no, they're there. They're just tiny. So like, oops, wrong camera. But here, actually keep that camera.
Oh wait, yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Here you go. It's actually clearer because it's my phone.
Oh, nice.
So down here, created by the Four Horsemen Studios, Eric Treadaway, Jem Preziosi, and Eric Cornboy Maisie. And then you got Nate Barch, who is now on staff, the front and back card art, who did a ton of the art for the Masterverse. Yeah, Mo2. Photography by Trevor Williams, right? So they've even got the product managers in here, Chris and George. So yeah, it's here. And then you got Sherry Lynn Cook doing the painting. Is it Bill as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I forget what Cameron and Joe do. Sorry. And then Jeremy Gerard doing their marketing and a lot of the storytelling and stuff, or like taking the stories from Eric and then kind of giving them life by like writing them down. There's this awesome, like, this is the original art by, or not the art that's on the box by Nate Barch. Nate. And then you got your call outs for some of these just amazing figures. And so I think that culture starts there. And we had the first West Coast meetup last May, and you can take that off. Look at my pores.
That's so incredible, by the way. Like, I'm glad that like it's expanding.
Yeah, no, the West Coast thing.
Yeah.
So they had their Mythic meetup last May in Sacramento, not too far from me, like 2 hours away. And so, oh god, those planets look amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I was always into like planets and shit. I was like, thank you, Star Wars. So,
but Nate was there, as was Nate Barch, who did the art, as well as like other folks. But just to focus on him for a second, I had a conversation with him because he's like relatively new to the being on staff at Four Horsemen as the artist rather than just sort of a contractor. And I asked, like, are you still doing art for Mattel? He's like, absolutely. And like, they're artists, the owners of the studio are artists too. So they actively encourage us to like go off and like do other things and take time to create for themselves. And so it's very much like all that to say is like a very much like artist driven creative space. It seems like, that's what I'm hearing. And when you do like intern for a day on Legion's weekend, they do like in November, which is where like they have the con, and then the lead up to the con is they have this thing called intern for a day where they open up the studios for fans and anybody else to like who sort of wins the lottery to get in. They'll like, it's kind of like you're there, you're getting a tour of the studio and you're meeting within, like Nate will do a workshop, Trevor will do a photography
classes.
Right. So it's very much like grounded in the art and craft of the toy, which obviously I think translates to the objects themselves, because these things are gorgeous.
Yeah. Just like, they're on a whole other level, like everything surrounding them. Which is, again, it's just one of the reasons that they've won me over to like, you know what? I'm really digging what the Four Horsemen are doing, and that's where I want to be. That's what I want to be involved with as far as my collection. I just can't get over how amazing all of this is. And there are these different elements that they do. And then the community surrounding it, like without even just the four horsemen involved, but, Brick bringing up, the cabal and everything. Like, it's when looking at like different communities, especially like within the toy world, there are a couple positives. There's a bunch of negatives. And, it's all this thing where like I've never had a negative experience with anybody involved with Four Horsemen and these. Like yesterday, met up with Corey, Make Shape Create. We got to meet in person.
I watched that video last night. It was awesome that you guys got to do that. He's good people.
Right? Yeah, definitely. And, we had a lot of fun going to Attorney of Dreams and checking out what they had. But then we went over to Uncle Bob's vintage toys.
Bob's your uncle.
And while we were there, like, just talking with Bob, he is a huge fan of Mythic Legions, and he's one of their authorized retailers. So he's got in like a lot of really, really good stuff. But like just being able to sit and talk with him yesterday too, like was great. We had a blast.
That's rad. Yeah, it's good to hear from the retailer end too. I do wonder about that. It's a business too. So the art side, but
so did Corey like get to look at Mythic Legions? Like I can't imagine like I don't think he's in on them yet, but like I can't imagine he wouldn't.
He will be.
Because like just with what he does, like Mythic Legions would make a lot of customizing he does, like a lot. Some of the stuff that like with Motu, there somebody who customizes Motu, there are parts of it, even with the Origins, it's really like not ideal, and it just seems like with the way Mythic Legions are made, it's a lot easier. And like his creativity with like Origin stuff is epic. So I think he would really, the extra parts you get with Mythic Legions, I think Corey would have a great time. He would be able to up his game as the MacGyver of toy customizing.
I certainly agree with you. I think it's right up his alley. But like I said, that's strictly a yet.
Yeah.
He keeps hanging out with me. Well,
yeah, it'll happen.
we know what happens.
Really quick, I'm gonna Alex, same, which is why last time I got a pencil sharpener, I got a USB charging one. So I can just plug it into the computer. It has made the battery life much better. I do have to replace it more because after a while the sharpener will start getting dull and then it starts screwing up my pencils. And then that's why I have the little hand ones always about as well. I need to update some of the links. Like there are no links in the description of this right now. I will do that, Alex. I will, when I update the links, I will have a couple of the USB charging pencil sharpeners that I use in there. Of course, let me do it. They are Amazon affiliate links. So if anyone buys anything from them, I do get a tiny, tiny commission or whatever. Anyway, though, I will link those so that you can check them out. I definitely recommend it because A, it's better for the environment. You're not having to replace batteries as much. It's better for your sanity because I don't have to go look for pencils for batteries. I can just plug it in and it's ready to go in a few minutes. And not having to constantly stop and sharpen pencils, with the old twisty by hand, lets me color longer. Otherwise, my wrists and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the sleeve is partially for aesthetic, but the rest of it is just that little bit of extra fabric helps me color longer. So, and this year it's been a little bit more cosmetic the last few months. My eczema has been delightful this year. So,
oh no,
let's keep that going in 2024, skin. Even this is probably TMI for most people, but I get it really bad in my scalp, so bad that I had bald spots at one point. I was
I
noticing
got a really bad bald spot.
I was noticing last night, I'm like, why do I have this cowlick? And it's because one of the spots on my scalp, it's been so long that the hair has grown back. So it looks like a little alfalfa, or the beginnings of one of those Karen cuts where like there's the fin in the back. But I'll take it because
Dear God, not the Karen fin.
not the Karen cut. I have a wig that looks like the Karen cut. I almost wore that to the stream on Kayla and Johnny's the other night, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna wear the blonde ombre wig because I had not washed my hair. It needed to be washed, and there was no time. It was not going to be dry in time for that stream. So, and hair dryers, whatever. And the cats do not appreciate my hair dryer, so. But I almost wear that one because some of those are because when the eczema was really bad, it was easier to not pick at it or have blood oozing down the side of my face.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, that's the fun. That was always fun. It happened one time on a date. I did not get a second date with that person, which was fine because I didn't actually need one, but I'm assuming it had more to do with the blood from my head during dinner.
Gotta say, open wounds and bleeding on people is not often the chosen method for dating.
Well, and there are people that are into stuff like that, but I don't know that that's the person I need to be with. Yeah, I will get some. Let me find the words, Alex. I will get links set up so you can check out some of the stuff I use. Most of it's affordable. I try to spend very little on as much as I can, so it'll be affordable. It is through Amazon, but even if you don't shop through them, it'll at least give you some ideas, so you can look for them. Because a pencil sharpener will save your hands, your time, and your mental health. Yeah, so.
Okay, I might be overworking this a little.
Important.
That can happen.
Sky. So the tricky thing is I worked in some blues and some greens, and I did the sort of purple to kind of get some contrast. But now I'm like, what do I do with the sky? Because I don't know.
Let me pull it up really quick. All right. So what do you do with the sky? That's a good question. Oh, wow. It's nice. I like the clouds.
Thank you.
I would say with the color scheme, like just go with sort of a light yellow or orange, like maybe dark down by the mountains and then lighten it up and just lightly sort of through the background. Are you like the ornate thing behind his head?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing that where the white space is see-through, or is it just not colored in?
I think it's see-through. It's or it's I have an image of the figure to the left just to kind of get a sense of what's what.
Yeah, I did mine as though it were a disc. Yeah, I would do something with this guy so you can sort of get it across that that's
see-through.
See-through. Yeah.
You're saying an orange-ish. All right, let's.
Yeah, I would try orange just down around the horizon and then just sort of lighten it and go yellowish. I'll exit the solo. I can't figure out anyway. But yeah, so yeah, and that's one of the things. Next week or two, I've got all these the pads of ink coming with these little not like pictures or anything, but just little stamps for ink, because I'm going to start trying that on some of my backgrounds where I stamp out colors. I watched a video, one of the color tube people I enjoy.
Are we talking solid printed?
Well, it's almost like with a sponge. So you just take the ink and then you sort of prep it in the back, and you can do varying, which for me, especially with some of the skies of Eternia, if I do it just right, I can get some cool sky effects.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, her name is Corey. Her channel is Colorfully Optimistic. She's a big part of why I figured out how to do hair, because she does a lot of hair tutorials. But she did a demonstration video of using like an ink pad and then using that to do backgrounds. And because a lot of times in my personal color work, the stuff that I don't necessarily put on social media, I will often not finish pictures because I don't want to the background. I get bored and the backgrounds are, like if it's a big space like this, often I will. I don't know why I didn't add planets though. I'm okay with like coloring books adding it, but like when I think one of the things I do need to get over, excuse me, for the stuff that I do that's not content, is it would never occur to me to add planets to like some of the adult coloring books I have, because that I still have that moment of like, this is somebody else's art that I'm coloring.
Yeah.
With these old coloring books, it's not as it's easier because like so many of them were under a time crunch, and part of my vibe with the old coloring books is trying to elevate the art and highlight the art or fix the art when it's obvious the person doing it was under a time crunch and had to go really fast. But I actually that needs to be on my list of personal off the internet, not for content coloring, that I need to get into the habit of remembering it's okay to add planets to that. If somebody is doing a coloring book and that's their art form, they obviously are okay with people sort of adjusting the images. So I need to go over my own shit. So anyway.
Good call on this orange. Having fun with it. Pops.
Awesome. Is it the vermilion orange?
There's a poppy red that I was using. There is
poppy red is a good orangey red.
And then vermilion Claire? Vermilion Claire? Wow.
Yeah. I think in that set they call it vermilion red maybe, but it's orange. It's like the poppy red is very orangey red, which used to throw me, but it's more red depending on what you blend it with. When I rediscovered Prismacolors in like 2008-ish, I didn't quite get the concept of blend right away. Luckily, the girl who sat next to me was one of the early adopters of adult coloring. And she would color some of my art for me, which is how I decided to, when I was trying to do my comic strip, why I decided, well, I'll just do it all in Prismacolor. And so at some point. Oh, that's nice. Very nice, Oz. It's looking good.
Thank you.
Atmosphere. Anyway, what was it? Mythic Legions.
Yeah.
I just wanted to. This figure that Oz and I are doing, Poxus, is part of a wave that's been like long delayed and should be shipping in 2024.
Oh, nice!
And I'm
so this
super
is actually
excited
a character
for this one.
People could buy possibly.
Oh yeah. This is
you'll be able to pick it up.
Yeah. So the Four Horsemen, obviously that's the name of their studio, but clearly they have some connection to this idea from the book of Revelation, from the Bible, of like these end of days kind of like characters, right? And so this is one of those horsemen in this world. This is the equivalent of, I guess, well, not I guess, 12 years of Catholic school will do it to you. This is the pestilence, right? Sort of horseman of disease. There's pestilence, there's death, there's war, and famine. Yeah. So this one is like that sickly, insecty thing, and it's super cool. Like, again, if you look at the way I did it here is like brighter saturated tones, but if you look at the actual figure, it's kind of gross.
Yeah.
So muted but disgusting at the same time.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this wave coming out because it also has it's mixed in, the sort of villainous characters are also mixed in with heroic characters and some villains, and so there's like a lot of sorcery and magic going on in this wave. So there's like fully robed wizard type with like magic effects and stuff. So this thing behind his head is actually kind of a transparent or translucent magic kind of thing behind his head, and they have people who have like the full-on Doctor Strange, things coming out of their hands, full-on like runes, or I don't know what you call them, those effects. So
yeah,
cool stuff.
It's also one of the more brightly colored waves as well, which I really, really like, because a lot of the other waves, again, they're very muted, or leading into the darker tones. Whereas this wave, because a lot of the magic and everything in it, it's very brightly colored. It really pops. And that's why I'm surprised that Poxus himself, is he's like the most muted colored character of the wave.
Right. Yeah, I guess because he's, dingy, a little dingy.
He's supposed to look a little dirty.
Okay, so that's, I guess, sort of becomes my question. So is Mythic Legions like set in the past or the future, or is it like alternate reality? Like
alternate reality in a world called Mythos with two S's.
Okay.
Yes.
And this like full on lore, including like everything comes from like its creation myth. Yeah. Starting with like two gods, a feminine god and a masculine god, kind of like the feminine god kind of creates life in this world, and it's all like idyllic, and she loves her creations, and then the masculine god gets jealous, as one does, and starts to create his own creation or its own creations that are monstrous and kind of create chaos and violence, and that's the sort of horseman characters, these four horsemen and their different forces, right? So there's this Poxus leading kind of zombie undead. Wait, is that right? No.
He's got more disease, like zombie-esque, but more diseased.
Yeah, like
rotting infected
kind of things.
Right. Yeah, everything's rotting and decaying. Because then you've got Alithia, who is famine, so like her faction's all vampires in that curse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Arathir, who's death, has
not death, war. Arathir's
I'm sorry, war. And how would you describe his minions? I mean, they're kind of like human-esque, but in armor, right? They're like soldiers, I guess.
Well, because you've got his guys, like underneath his faction, there's like a lot of subsets, like they're very much like at war. But you got things like dwarves, you got orcs, you've got
everybody,
very angry everybody, and that's kind of like his thing, right? Like everybody's got to be against one another. He's got to set the stage for war.
Yep, and then you got Necronominus, Death, who's got a lot of skeleton minions, or skeleton people that follow it. And then you have...
It's a church.
Who am I missing? Yeah, it's a church. That's right. A congregation of Necronominus.
Yeah. Which that won me over completely. I was like, what? A church of death? What? This is madness. It's beautiful.
So they're creating chaos, and then sort of on the forces of light, if you will, there's like a mix of stuff. There's like ones that look like total Templars that like follow a more like, I think one of the images that you chose, Allison, was Gadriel, like a more angelic kind of creature, like that sort of like mythology and lore. Then you've got the So that's the Order of Aetheron. They follow like a bird eagle type,
right,
like deity, I guess, or which is actually like a physical giant birdie beast. And then there's a lion, Laodiceus. No, wait, that's not right.
No, you're right. He's
Am
the
I right?
lion.
It's so much. It's like, it's
Hold
typical like high fantasy stuff, right? You need an
Yep.
encyclopedia and they break it down. And then who are the others?
So you've got the son of the noble bear, the barbarians. Well, I mean, they're a little more in the middle.
Yeah.
A little bit more in the middle. Xylonos flock, which they are right. Yeah, because there's like a little beast, like a little sigil for each of these houses. And it's represented by like some kind of mystical animal. So Xylonos flock is the stag, where you're getting a lot of those fantasy creatures where you'll see like they have a centaur, satyrs, like little impish type things, fairies, elves, like, you get a lot of those in there. Like just the way that they've gone about thinking this out and everything that's involved with this line is pretty intricate, and it develops and weaves a big story, but they don't have a lot of that story written down either.
It's on a website, but it's not like written out as a book, and they're working on that right now. So it's like in prose or like literature.
And that's another one of those things that I just find neat about it, is because like there's room for your brain to play, and you kind of create your own world out of it. And with the system they use with the figures, like a lot of people are really marveled and really happy about the origins with like the pop and swap and getting back to that creativity of this community.
Multi-origins.
Right. The Horsemen have taken that to like a whole different level when it comes to the legions. And again, it's another thing that just makes them really unique and really wonderful to play around with, because everybody wants to, put themselves in a world, right? Like you want to transport yourself there. And they were able to really do that, I feel, with this particular line, because you can just put yourself in.
So that's the lore in the world, Allison. It's fun.
It's pretty cool.
House of the Noble Bear kicks ass, just saying.
Yeah, right. Everyone's about that bear, but yeah, it's really they're. Again, I only originally saw them because of the She-Ra homage figure, and then missed out, and didn't understand what was what. I just saw it on the internet, and then it was available, and then it wasn't, and then it was expensive, and I was like, okay, but it's definitely a cool line. Sort of what I'm running into, and it's not necessarily even the price. I know a lot of people will sort of, I mean, like for older figures, yeah. But I think sort of the space thing is sort of what I like I've got.
Sorry, you're talking physical space or
physical space of it, and also one of the things I've noticed since I've been doing the coloring books, picking them up, is a lot of, especially the ones that are for old properties, all of the toys are in the coloring books. So I'm sort of having that thing where it's like, do I need to own giant chunks of plastic representing all these characters when I can just get a coloring book that has every character, the entire wave? I'm not having to worry about if I order it on eBay if it smells weird, or or if it's been misrepresented, like there's missing labels, or like
sure,
especially with the vintage toys. So it's like I'm having I'm also old. I have a birthday coming in April where I hit one of those big numbers, and
25.
double that. And so it's sort of a normal place to sort of step back and evaluate. But I also want to, for 2024, what will be happening with my collection is I'm going to be going through everything and identify like some of the holes in my collection. But it does mean is there are going to be a lot fewer. Oh wow, this is a really cool Marvel Legends figure. Let me grab that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be looking at my vintage Kenner, and my vintage Princess of Power, and identifying what's missing from those collections that I feel like are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even though some of those things are pretty spendy, sort of investing in completing those. I'm gonna sit down and make a list of DC Comics characters that I feel like I need action figures of, that I maybe don't have, or a version I don't have, and sort of instead of picking up a bunch of McFarlane figures that are maybe not quite the version I want, either looking for the version I do want, and maybe it means spending a little bit more to have that definitive character. But also, I've noticed the Boss Fight Studio is getting ready to unveil blank bucks for 6-inch scale.
Mm-hmm.
So I do plan on and Boss Fights also has the sort of blank bucks for like a 3 3/4 line.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna start picking up, I think, blank bucks from hacks. I'm gonna start picking up some of those sort of things.
Okay.
I'm just making my own. Like I really want a Charlie's Angels action figure line, and a couple blank female bucks, and I can easily make that. I've picked up a couple Origins, and Masters of the WWE, or more precisely, to make some Beastmaster figures.
Oh God,
nice.
We shouldn't have.
That's amazing.
We should have gotten years ago and did not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to be focusing on what I'm collecting, and sort of, I feel like the only active toy line I'm really, I'm sort of all in on Origins until that scale is done. Like they're like it's the cartoon collection right now, but those parts are still pretty interchangeable. It's still the same scale, so I'm in on that.
They're gorgeous too.
Yeah,
BT dubs.
Cobb did his review of like that Tila, like her torso is a blank buck.
Yep.
Like I'm hoping there are lots of those, and that Amazon overbuys and I can get some cheap ones so that I can make a lot with that blank buck.
Totally.
And the difference in the head, it almost looks like some of the Marvel Legends figures I've picked up just for the head sculpts. 4 customs will fit better on those than they do on the Origins bodies. So, so there's going to be a lot of sort of that in the coming year. And it's Mythic Legions, they're cool, but it comes down to sort of that space. It comes down to, what do I want my collection to look like? I'm also to that point where pretty soon I have to think about what's going to happen when I die to all the stuff I have acquired. And, so...
You're going to donate it to a museum.
Yeah, right. That would be ideal, since obviously it's not going to pay for anyone's college, as my mother always was like, you could pay for college with that. Sure, Mom. Maybe if I weren't as attached to some of the stuff, yes. But it would be really hard to sell. But I do need to go. But one of those collections for me is Strawberry Shortcake. I want to go in and get a bunch of the vintage dolls minted, because they're fairly inexpensive, and there was for a while, similar to how there was that G.I. Joe Collectors Club, there was a company in, I believe, Italy that went in and made a bunch of characters who had never been made as dolls. There were, Strawberry Shortcake was an international product. But in Mexico, because certain societal conventions and whatnot were a little bit different, there were fewer berry, and they had a bunch of original characters who were flower based. And the original Mexican versions go for quite a bit of money, whereas it's like $100-ish plus shipping to get them from this Italy company. And they're technically, even though they would fall under custom, they're actually sanctioned, like licensed product. That use the original box. So I'm gonna do some stuff like that. I'm gonna close up.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna finally pick up sort of the glamour gals I'm missing. Mattel did a compete, because as Mattel does, somebody else comes in and does something successful that eats into Barbie, and they have to have a competing line. I mean, they even did it with Motu with She-Ra. Like, little girls were buying Tila. That was hurting Barbie sales. So what do? Let's make a knockoff, like a quote unquote knockoff line. So when Kenner was having success with Glamour Gals, they released a line called Dazzle. And I've got a couple of those Menton cards. I'd like to finish that up. Just to have these complete collections of the stuff that, as a kid, I found that basically brought me joy as a child. So
that's awesome. Yeah, having those sort of like, this is the time of year, right, where you're kind of like rethinking your approach to stuff, and it's kind of cool that you've thought this through pretty clearly.
Yeah, and it was ironically, it was sort of Mythic Legions that because I was looking at some of them, I'm like, they would be really cool. And then Oz sent the coloring book, and I'm like, well, there are some of the coolest characters right here. I can easily fit these into, and I can color them and customize them into whatever character I want. And the customization of Mythic Legions does appeal. But then it also comes down to sort of that time. Time is precious, and I've got so many projects and so much customizing stuff that I don't know if I'll ever get it all done. So I have finished my first one. I'm going to do a second one, but really quick.
Yeah, I think I'm stuck on Poxus and just going to sort of, now I'm like going in and kind of trying to pull out some of those details.
There we go. So yeah, I'm not doing anything. I added obviously 2 planets, but otherwise,
they look so cool.
Yeah, he came out pretty good. I like I had to get the wings, and once I got the wings, the rest of the color palette made sense. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with them. So for those watching still, there'll be pictures on Instagram later of him. So let's see, I've got the Angel Lady, and then I've got Laughing Skeleton Dude. So let's do a Laughing Skeleton Dude.
I approve.
Well, yeah, and I've been doing so much Star Wars and so much Princess of Power and He-Man, and a lot of it sort of quote unquote good guys. So it's kind of fun to do some monsters. Something a little bit horrific and monstrous so that I can have a little fun with it. And let's see.
Ahem, he's beautiful.
And of course, I'm going to have to add a planet because at this point, it's just...
It's signature.
Say you've done anything if you haven't added a planet. And I will use Jasmine, which is an off yellow. But I think just the one. I just need the one in the background. Because... Let's see, so this guy is, oh wait, and let's exit solo now that I've started that. There we go, go back to that.
Am I even in frame? Oops.
You've been framed.
I don't know why okay, there we go. And then this guy is, let's
You like
see.
that off?
This one is pelvicus. Pelvicus. Okay.
A lot of the skeletons have bony names.
Gotcha. So it's not Elvis after a really extreme diet, is what you're saying?
No, not at all.
That's good.
Thank you very much.
So what program do you use, Oz?
It is called Autodesk Sketchbook.
Okay.
It used to be a subscription-based service years ago. But even before I started using it, it became free, which is one of the reasons why I chose it when I started to switch from physical media to digital.
Yeah.
Because I wanted something that I can experiment with that wasn't going to cost me a small fortune. And then with everything that it gives you, I've realized, like, you know, for something that's absolutely free, this is absolutely amazing. And I really haven't found anything that I can't do with it. Which is the other part that just really impresses me about it, because it's like, you know, this is pretty all-encompassing with different tools, different brushes. You can create your own gradients and your own palettes. Like, I don't really see much need to start paying for some other media form with this.
Yeah.
And one of the best things that I enjoy about it, that made me start looking at digital media in the first place, is, man, do I save a lot of money not having to buy more colored pencils.
Right. Yeah, it adds up really quick.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, after you get yourself a good, decent set with a wide variety, then it's like you go to the store and you buy like the one or two that you use frequently enough that you actually need to buy.
Or like me, you find an online retailer who has affordable open stock, so you can order them for cheaper than Blick, and it's technically a smaller company. So and there's set up for educators, so it also helps teachers.
Right.
And then I get more pencils, and I don't feel as weird when I'm ordering 6 creams or 6 eggshells in one order, like I do when I go to Blick, and they just look at me like, all the colors, and you pick eggshell and cream. So it's really cool. Like, what I mean, obviously you have a day job that isn't necessarily creative. What sort of creative stuff are you doing on the side with all of the digital stuff?
Honestly, I haven't been doing a lot lately. Which in some ways bothers me, like, because I used to when I was working for PayPal, and I'll say this now because I'm not working for PayPal anymore, I used to spend a lot of my downtime when I wasn't being the bad guy and collecting money, just drawing and coloring.
Yeah.
So that kind of like brought me back into it, because before that I hadn't done it in over a decade, like years and years. So then with that, I kind of like, okay, well, you know, I think I need to go out and get like some colored pencils again. I need to start doing stuff like that. So after a while I was doing that, but then, like I said, I was spending all this money on all these colored pencils because I'd be going through them while I was working, you know, finger quotes there, working. But like, I just needed to find a way to make it cheaper on myself. So I started looking at, okay, well, I need to go into digital media. I want to try this out and see what it's like. And one thing that I never liked about it is I always like well, just being able to rotate your page, right?
Yeah.
Like when you draw, you got to like rotate the page so you make the strokes more comfortable for your hand, everything. Can't do that with digital. And I asked for one year for Christmas, I'd asked for a art tablet, you know, to give it a try to see if that would help. And my aunt found one that was decently priced, got it for me for Christmas, and I was like, all right, I've really got to try to start this. And you know, it's still a little odd to me. It's not as comfortable as physical media in every sense, but it is a lot of fun, and it gives me a lot of things to experiment with that I normally wouldn't. Like when I draw and I color, I always use pencils, and then I'll go over with like ink. But with this, it's like, you know, I've got airbrushes, I have different paintbrush tools. I even have a glow brush in here where I can make things appear like they're glowing a little bit. However, I know how to do that effect just by using color, so I don't use it very often because it's limited. But they've got different ways, like you can program your own sets within this, which is really, really cool and something unique that I didn't notice a lot of other things had as much of. Now, again, I'm not as familiar with all different types of art software and what people are using. Maybe there is, but in the ones that I saw, I didn't see a lot of that being available. So the fact that I could do that with this, I thought was really, really unique. And yet I still haven't done it yet because I was looking at YouTube tutorials, and you can only watch so many of those before, like, all right, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Let me just jump into this thing and start doing it. And one thing that I'm very familiar and very comfortable with drawing is skulls. So I went through and I did like a skull as one of my very first digital pieces, and it came out looking pretty awesome. And I was just like, all right, you know what? Yeah, this is cool.
Skulls are fun.
They are fun. Little boneheads.
That's what I'm loving the whole YouTube thing, because it's given me kind of an outlet to, like, even this, just being here with you and, you know, coloring and doing a little bit of drawing and inking. As I'm doing this is super fun. Like, when am I going to make the time to do that? This gives me like a time and place and schedule to actually sit and do it. So, and I find with a channel, it's the same thing. It's like video editing, and, you know, oh, I can mess with audio again, and, you know, oh, here, let's do a song or whatever. It's really cool. So I've had a lot of fun doing the whole YouTube thing. It's given me that space to kind of be creative, with a little bit more intention.
Right, so, like a purpose behind it. And it is,
I know that sounds weird to some people, because some people are like, yeah, just do it. But for me, sometimes that adult me having a container to be able to do this stuff in helps make sure I actually do it.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And it helps sort of to have a sort of a reason to justify it a little bit, because, you know, like, I know there are people in my life where if I were like, oh yeah, I spent Sunday coloring, they would sort of go, sort of have some sort of feeling about it. But I've noticed when I'm chatting with people, I'm like, oh yeah, I spent Sunday filming videos for my YouTube channel. I colored all day. All of a sudden, it's a different. They look at it differently, which is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I certainly get a lot of looks when I say I have a YouTube channel, and they're about what? And I'm like, oh, about toys. And they're like, what kind of toys? And I'm like, adult toys. And they're, oh.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of go, oh, not those adult toys. And then they're like, oh, those adult toys. Well, once I get the Osley fans going.
Right.
Color. Now I'm realizing
Is it a sun? Is it a planet? I don't know. It's something.
Will it ever stop?
It's a thing.
Green armor. Come on, Poxes. Let's do your green armor. Keep forgetting.
I tried to make it look like
phones and
I was just saying, I tried to make it look like weathered copper as an excuse to have it green.
What am I looking at?
All right. So we are hitting the 2-hour point, which is usually around the time I say we should probably wrap up. I'm having fun. I would say, well, let's keep going, but I do know that Oz has some streaming stuff coming up. I know. Do you have your show today, Brick, or is it? I mean, you
I do. I'm gonna go live and do it.
Oh, cool.
Like normal time, 4:30.
Okay, cool. And then, but I also know that highly articulated Adam is going live soon-ish. So,
yep. I think he's doing a premiere, but still, yeah, it's premiering at 2. He's got
so
right? Best of.
It's about 9 minutes till 2 p.m. my time. So we'll start wrapping up. And we got a late start, but we're also going a little bit over. Definitely, there's an entire book of these Mythic Legions characters from, get it correct, Cabal Creations by Dusty Standiford. It's a pretty excellent book. And I started this skull guy, Pelvis. I'm going to finish him today, so he'll definitely be up on Instagram, but I didn't even get the Winged Lady started. There are a lot of other pages, so if the two of you are into it, I would love to have you guys back regularly to do Mythic Legions pages.
Love that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because finger quote, the three of us hang out regularly. It's also a lot easier to do sort of the bantery side of it in the chat and like the talking, because I don't. What I like about this format is I get to invite people who don't necessarily normally, maybe travel in my YouTube circles, or I don't get as much, so I get to, but the two of you, I've hung out enough that we don't have to do the getting to meet you stuff. So it's a lot more.
No, fun. You again.
Yeah, right. No, it's not that at all.
Didn't we all just hang out for like 6 hours last night?
Well, I jumped on after Brick got off the screen.
That's true. That's true. Last
night.
That
often happens because Brick. Well, see,
Brick is an old man.
My home life stuff ends around the time I start jumping online, whereas that's, I think, when Brick's family time starts. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely we should do more of this because I have an entire book, and it feels. I almost the other day opened it and was going to color a page, and I'm like, well, no, it wasn't one of the ones I picked, but I'm like, no, like I think I would rather sort of, in the spirit of it, do it as sort of a regular live stream thing. Since we're gonna start wrapping up, we should probably start talking about where people can find other people and whatnot. So we'll start with Oz. Oz, where can the people find you?
On the moon.
Excellent.
On Ostradamus Toys on YouTube. You can all find me there. We do the amazing Clubhouse Hangouts every weekend, and even when maybe necessarily I don't even start the hangout, sometimes another beautiful person within our little Clubhouse circle will go ahead and run with it and pick it up, and then I can jump in later because the Clubhouse is just more, it's more than me. It's all of us getting to spend time, unwind, and do this kidulting thing that helps us not feel so depressed about our overall lives. But, having fun hanging out with toys. You can find me Thursday nights on Skelevator's channel as we do Toy Frenzy. or even now on occasion we do the Frenzy episode where it's a little less toy centric and a little bit more into our wider variety of interest, which is really fun to do. And then for anybody who follows around on YouTube, you'll probably catch me on somebody's random channel. I might even pop up on a cooking channel at some point in time. I have no idea. I'll just randomly run through. You have no idea where I'm going to be on YouTube. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
Excellent. And then today, do you have stuff happening?
We certainly do. Haven't even made the thumbnail yet, but a little bit later tonight, we are going to be doing the countdown to New Year's, where we're going to be counting it down to New Year's across all the time zones. We're going to be discussing our best ofs of 2023. No, like real specific categories. It's mostly just kind of people from the clubhouse hanging out and talking about, hey, we got, this or that, things that, we enjoyed in 2023 that we think are the best, and not necessarily, any particular thing.
Excellent. And I will probably be on there, so
yeah,
as is my way. All right. And then I'm Brick. Where can the people find you?
Brick something is the name of the channel here on YouTube, and over on Instagram it's brick.something, and on TikTok now it's brick.something, although it's been a while since I've updated. Today there's a couple things going on. At 4:30, as I mentioned, every Sunday, 4:30. Sorry, you can hear me, right? I'm kind of coloring and
totally hear you.
Okay, cool. 4:30 Sundays, I do a thing called the Brick Something News, and news is an acronym which stands for Needless Ephemera We Saw. So it's usually me and a co-host kind of like talking about nerdy things that we saw that week or otherwise. But the last two, since it's fallen on both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, I've just opted to do it myself, and starting again next week I'll have all the different co-hosts on. So both of these beautiful people have joined me there as co-host and probably will be back. I don't want to be presumptuous, but in 2024. And then let's see, I've been working on editing this my top figures of the year, which was supposed to be 10, then it turned into 15, and so I'm going to do that. I'm editing it right now, and I will be talking about it too tonight over on Oz's channel. And I'm kind of proud of it. It's been fun to do. So take a look at that. There's been a lot of great toys in 2023, and my collection kind of like is, I guess, multifaceted and diverse. So I cover a lot of territory. So check that out. And then yeah, I don't really have anything other than being on Oz's tonight for a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be anywhere else. And I'm hoping this year to do a lot more of sort of different things. As Allison started earlier, like I'm bucking the advice of sticking to one thing on my channel, and I'm going to do a couple different things. So anyway, just look out. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And yeah, I think that's it.
Excellent. All right.
I'm gonna go subscribe, right? Oh wait.
Thanks, Oz.
You're welcome.
Oh, and the shorts. Allison taught me about shorts, and they've been really good to me. And so I've been doing those turnaround things, and that's all, like, seriously, that's all Allison, like me trying to copy Allison with her coloring shorts, but in my own sort of toy centric variety.
Shorts have been really good for me, and like it helped me sort of start a schedule and like make room for content creation. So it's been really good, and I guess that's a good morph over into where you can. Well, obviously, if you're watching this, you kind of know where to find me. But stuff coming up. Obviously, I'm still doing daily shorts, which technically they should have ended, because my original goal with daily shorts was, I'm going to do a short a day every day for a month. And then I was having so much fun. It became 2 months, and then I'm just like through the end of the year. But what has happened is because of the way I sort of will sit and do three, I'll film 3 or 4 of them. I counted, yes, I've got a few shorts that I'm working on right now. And once I finish those, I actually have enough shorts with my backlog that I actually will have daily shorts through the end of March.
Amazing.
So technically,
That's
they're
incredible.
ending soon, but I've got enough content. It's fine. So daily shorts will continue for a bit. There will start being different styles of shorts. If you watch my shorts this week, there were 2 different Princess Leia, aka Carrie Fisher, shorts that went up. One of them was sort of like I made an adult coloring page from an old coloring book, and the other was just sort of a little extra fanciness. There will be a few more like that. There will be some storytelling shorts coming up where I do several pages to tell a story. So I'm going to play with it a little bit and diversify it. I'm also going to dump a few shorts that I liked, but I didn't know how much interest there would be in. So some labors of love that may not get any views are coming. Tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, I will have a short collection going up, which is me just collecting all the old ones. Sometime between now and then, you will get a video of my favorite shorts of the year. And I have half-assed have my favorite toys of the year video, but I don't know if that'll happen. I'm not feeling it the way I would want to feel it before I put it out there. So maybe I'll change my mind after I do some other stuff today. But so there's that. And then I have 2 more Star Wars vintage Kenner booklets that will hit this week on Wednesday and Saturday. One from 1978 featuring the Cantina creatures and a lot of the play sets that were released in 78. And then in 1979 with the first Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
So those will be up there and for your perusal. And sometime soonish, the instructions from the 1979 Kenner Droid Factory. I still have well, as if it would ever go away, but I did release last week my first full toy tube video. The missteps of Kenner's 1978 Princess Large Size Leia, which is a little bit clickbaity on purpose. So far, the video is doing really well, but if you haven't watched it yet, please do. It was a labor of love because, Princess Leia is the whole reason I'm here. I don't think toys would have caught on quite the same way they did for me without Star Wars and Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher. So please give that a watch and a like. And this will be my last live stream of the year. So I just want to thank you to everyone who's here watching, everyone who has subscribed, who's liked, who's interacted. It's been really fun finding this weird little arty corner of YouTube that I can do my thing and find people who like what I'm doing. So I think we all spend a lot of time with our little collecting habits, our little quirky collections, and our art nerd stuff, thinking we're the only weirdos. Newsflash, we're not. There are a lot of us, and I'm glad a lot of you are here with me enjoying this journey. So I appreciate you all. And 2024 goals, more content, more subscribers, so that we can get to a place where I can do stuff like memberships and offer, and do giveaways. Some of you might be getting some original coloring pages. So anyway, or completed coloring pages, because I can't keep all of this stuff for the whole of my life. So with that, I'm gonna quickly highlight the last 2 comments for the day. Black Phoenix, look for me inside your heart because that's where I live. You do, Alex. You live in all of our hearts, and we appreciate you. And Pain, perfect advice for ending the day. Do what makes you happy. So with that said, I thank you again to everyone who's hung out with us and chilled. My pages will be up on Instagram later.
Could we show the art before we go?
Oh yeah, let me show. Mine is on screen right now. Let me pop.
Let me swing mine around so it's right side up.
Yeah, get yours quickly into
Oh, sure.
There we go. There's Oz. And now I'll give Brick a few moments. I forgot that whole part. I apologize. All right. And there's Oz. And Oz, we'll assume that you are going to take a snapshot and share that on Instagram. It looks really good. People need to see it. And then quickly we'll throw Brick up. And there's Brick's page. Brick will also be posting this on Instagram so that we can also, that looks really good. I like what you did with this. That is not what I envisioned when I recommended what you do with the sky. So what you did is way better than what was in my head when I said, hey, this is what I would do. So there you are, guys. Art. That's how it works. You make a suggestion and somebody makes it their own.
Right.
We love this about art. So, all right. I guess with that said, 2 hours and 20 minutes, it's a good time to wrap it up. And Adam will be starting over at Highly Articulated. So I need, obviously, the bathroom and more coffee, but I will be in chat over there.
Mo
so anyone hanging out here, follow us over to Highly Articulated. Thank you for your time. Allison Choi, Retro Toy Princess, out.